11 canned foods you may no longer be able to find at Walmart after July 25th. But are they really disappearing overnight? Or has Walmart quietly been narrowing the selection for a while now? Most of us think of canned food as the most stable category in the grocery store. A can of soup, tuna, or evaporated milk has sat in the same spot for years, so we naturally assume that the next time we come back, it'll still be there. But what's happening behind the shelves is a completely different story. Import tariffs, rising steel prices for cans, livestock disease outbreaks, fishing quotas, and new supply contracts are all putting pressure on these 11 product categories at the same time. The problem doesn't necessarily begin with an empty shelf. It usually starts when one concise disappears, one budget brand isn't restocked, or Walmart keeps only a few of the best-selling options. By the time we get to number 1, you'll see how all of these pressures can come together in one familiar product. And number 7 is the clearest example that sometimes what gets more expensive isn't the food inside the can, but the can itself. Let's start with number 11. 11. Canned Alaska salmon. The protein you can't just make more of when the market needs it. Have you ever noticed that canned salmon has stayed in almost the exact same spot on Walmart's shelves for years? That consistency makes it easy to forget that the fish inside the can doesn't come from a production line that can simply ramp up output in a few weeks. It depends on a natural cycle that takes years and is almost impossible for people to speed up. That's exactly why canned Alaska salmon is the first item on this list. Unlike chicken or beef, when demand goes up, producers can't simply raise more wild salmon. Most canned Alaska salmon is caught during a seasonal fishing period and is managed under strict harvest quotas to protect fish populations. This year's supply depends on fish that began their life cycle 3 to 7 years ago. If one fishing season is weak, the industry has almost no way to make up for it in just a few months. That's the vulnerability very few shoppers ever think about. According to Alaska fishery management agencies, harvest quotas are adjusted every year based on the number of salmon returning to rivers to spawn. A change in ocean temperatures, lower survival rates, or poor spawning conditions can significantly reduce the entire season's harvest. This is not a production line that can simply add another shift to meet market demand. But that's only half the story. Even if the fish supply is still sufficient, every can of salmon has to go through another chain of costs before it reaches Walmart's shelves. The fish has to be caught, processed in Alaska, canned, shipped thousands of miles to distribution centers, and then delivered to individual stores. At the same time, fuel costs, transportation costs, and especially the price of metal cans can all rise together. As more families begin looking for long-lasting sources of protein, demand for canned salmon increases as well, bringing pressure from both the supply side and the demand side at the same time. Interestingly, you may not notice any changes during your shopping trip today. That's because Walmart is often still selling inventory produced during the previous fishing season or under supply contracts signed months earlier. The changes usually happen much more quietly. Instead of all canned salmon disappearing, Walmart may first reduce slower-selling SKUs, such as larger can sizes, value-priced multi-packs, certain smaller brands, or some wild sockeye varieties that were competitively priced. That's how many shoppers begin to feel that the product has become hard to find, even though there's still canned salmon on the shelf. Another important detail is that wild salmon doesn't respond to the market the way a food factory does. Its biological cycle is measured in years, not weeks or months. That's what creates a significant lag in supply whenever demand changes. If your family regularly buys canned salmon, prioritize products clearly labeled Alaska or wild caught. Check whether the can includes the bones and skin, since they provide natural calcium and vitamin D. And compare the price per ounce instead of looking only at the price per can. And if you've never tried a new brand before, buy a few cans first before stocking up. But salmon isn't the only protein limited by biology. The next item is under even greater pressure, facing both disease outbreaks and steadily rising feed costs. Number 10. Canned chicken. The safe haven that's no longer safe when beef gets too expensive. Most people only think about canned chicken when the refrigerator is empty, the power is out, or they need a quick meal. But that's exactly why it could become one of the first protein products that's harder to find once shoppers start cutting back on beef. For years, chicken has been the go-to alternative whenever beef prices rise. When beef becomes too expensive, families usually switch to chicken without having to change the way they cook. That sounds completely normal. But there's one vulnerability that very few people notice. The chicken supply isn't sitting still, waiting for demand to increase. Since early 2022, more than 100 million poultry birds in the United States have been affected by outbreaks of highly pathogenic avian influenza, putting pressure on the entire poultry industry. On top of that, feed costs, electricity, fuel, labor, and processing costs have all remained much higher than they were before the pandemic. Once the meat is canned, manufacturers also have to add the cost of steel cans, lids, protective linings, and shipping to distribution centers across the United States. But that's only half the story. What makes canned chicken unique is that it's also under pressure from consumer behavior itself. As beef prices climb to their highest levels in years and tuna becomes more expensive as well, shoppers don't stop buying protein. They simply switch to more affordable options. That's why canned chicken, frozen chicken, and other prepared chicken products are all attracting a new group of customers. This is the demand shift effect. Before the supply has a chance to ease the pressure, demand rises because of a group of shoppers who previously had little interest in this product. Another factor that's often overlooked is shopping behavior during uncertain times. Canned chicken isn't something people buy regularly like milk or bread, but all it takes is a major storm, an extended power outage, or news about sharply rising food prices, and thousands of families may suddenly add a few extra cans to their carts. Each person may buy only 4 or 6 cans, but when that happens across the country, the sales rate can change very quickly. That doesn't mean every can of chicken will disappear from Walmart after July 25th. In reality, the changes are usually much quieter. Walmart may continue carrying great value and the best-selling brands while gradually reducing lower-volume SKUs, less popular can sizes, or products with higher wholesale costs and lower profit margins. The first thing shoppers usually notice isn't an empty shelf, but that the familiar brand or can size they always buy is no longer being restocked. There's one detail that's worth remembering when buying canned chicken. The net weight doesn't always reflect how much actual meat is inside. A 12.5-ounce can may contain a significant amount of broth. That's why you should compare the drained weight if the manufacturer provides it. Also check the sodium content and prioritize products with simple ingredient lists and fewer fillers. A serving of about 2 ounces typically provides between 13 and 15 grams of protein, but the sodium content can range from 250 to more than 400 milligrams, depending on the brand. Canned chicken is under pressure not only because of production costs, but also because more and more people see it as a substitute for more expensive protein options. But number 9 is facing a completely different problem. The supply may still be there, but the imported tomato flavor that so many families love could soon become much more expensive. Number 9. Canned Italian tomatoes. When flavor becomes the hardest thing to replace, The taste of Italy could soon become a luxury, not because the world is running out of tomatoes, but because the tomatoes many families use for pasta, pizza, and stews come from an entirely different supply chain. On Walmart's shelves, canned tomatoes look like one of the most stable products you can buy. But not every can of tomatoes is the same. About 95% of America's processing tomatoes are grown in California, while many premium varieties such as San Marzano, whole-peeled tomatoes, and DOP-certified products are imported from Italy. The climate, soil, and tomato varieties of southern Italy create a flavor that's difficult to replace with standard processing tomatoes. The vulnerability lies in the international supply chain. Before these products reach Walmart, they're affected by growing seasons in Europe, ocean shipping, fuel costs, exchange rates, import tariffs, steel prices, and the energy required for canning. If just one link in that chain becomes more expensive, the final retail price changes as well. Manufacturers are then often forced to either raise prices or reduce their product lineup. As a result, shoppers may still see canned tomatoes on the shelf, but San Marzano varieties, DOP-certified products, smaller imported brands, or less common, can sizes may gradually disappear. One detail that's easy to misunderstand is that the phrase San Marzano style does not prove the tomatoes were grown in San Marzano. Only products carrying DOP certification guarantee their geographic origin and specific production standards. Walmart doesn't have to remove the entire category either. The retailer can keep the best-selling SKUs, reduce shelf space, move smaller brands to online-only sales, or stop restocking certain products in selected stores. If you regularly cook Italian dishes, check the country of origin, look for DOP certification, and compare the price per ounce instead of relying only on the picture on the label. Italian tomatoes aren't becoming more fragile because the world is running out of tomatoes. They're becoming more fragile because that distinctive flavor depends on a longer and more expensive supply chain. But number 8 is under a different kind of pressure. All it takes is for tuna shoppers to change their buying habits, and two kinds of fish that were once overlooked could quickly become some of the best-selling items on Walmart's shelves. Number 8. Canned sardines and mackerel. The alternatives that could sell out the fastest. These are two kinds of fish that many shoppers use to walk right past without a second glance. But as tuna gets more expensive, the cans sitting on the bottom shelf suddenly become the first choice for families trying to save money. What's worth noticing is that sardines and mackerel don't have to lose their entire supply to become harder to find. It only takes a small percentage of tuna buyers switching over for sales to change very quickly. That's the demand shift effect. As tuna prices rise, consumers begin looking for a cheaper source of protein that's still convenient and shelf-stable. Sardines and mackerel quickly become the replacement. Just a small change in the buying habits of millions of shoppers is enough to put pressure on products that are produced on a much smaller scale. Their supply is still limited by fishing quotas, natural seasons, and imports from multiple countries along the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. At the same time, fuel costs for fishing vessels remain much higher than they were before 2020. Suppliers also have to absorb international shipping costs, the price of vegetable oil used for packing the fish, and the cost of steel cans before the products ever reach Walmart. Walmart typically responds by keeping only the best-selling SKUs. You may still see sardines or mackerel on the shelf, but olive oil-packed varieties, low-sodium options, imported brands, or value-priced multi-packs may disappear first because they sell through more quickly. These two fish also offer different nutritional benefits. Sardines are typically canned with their soft bones, providing about 300 to 350 milligrams of calcium and 20 to 23 grams of protein in every 3.75-ounce serving. Many people also believe that sardines packed in oil develop a more balanced flavor after they've been stored for a while. Meanwhile, mackerel stands out for its high omega-3 content and about 18 to 21 grams of protein per serving. If you're planning to stock up, choose products from multiple countries of origin, check the sodium content, and try each brand before buying in large quantities. For sardines, choose varieties with the bones left in if you want the added benefit of natural calcium. Sardines and mackerel show how even a small shift in shopping habits can turn products that were once overlooked into bestsellers. But number 7 reveals an even more surprising reality. Sometimes the most expensive part of the can isn't the food inside. Number 7. Evaporated milk. When the can is the most expensive part. The design of evaporated milk has barely changed for generations. It's still the familiar can sitting on Walmart's shelves, used by countless families for soups, baking, and coffee. But what looks the same on the outside is hiding some major changes behind the scenes. What's unique about evaporated milk is that its price doesn't depend only on milk. It depends on 2 supply chains at the same time: the dairy industry and the steel can manufacturing industry. The first source of pressure begins on dairy farms. Over the past half-century, the number of dairy farms in the United States has fallen by more than 95%, from millions of farms to roughly 24,000 that are still operating. Meanwhile, feed costs, electricity, labor, and refrigerated transportation before processing have all increased. Because fresh milk has to be processed very quickly after it's collected, even a rise in energy or fuel costs can push up the cost of every can of evaporated milk. But that's only half the story. After the milk is evaporated, manufacturers still have to package it in tin-plated steel cans with food-safe protective linings, attach the lids, sterilize the cans at high temperatures, and ship them to distribution centers. That means steel prices, interior can coatings, manufacturing energy, and packaging transportation costs all directly affect the final retail price. Interestingly, you usually don't see these changes right away. Manufacturers may have been paying higher costs for months, while Walmart continues selling under supply contracts that were signed earlier. Only when new contracts take effect do some of those higher costs begin showing up in the retail price, or lead to certain can sizes and lower-selling varieties being discontinued. That's why Walmart will often continue carrying great value, the national brands, and the best-selling sizes, while organic versions, low-fat varieties, less common can sizes, or regional brands are more likely to disappear first. One important detail to remember is that evaporated milk is not the same as sweetened condensed milk. Evaporated milk is unsweetened concentrated milk with about 60% of its water removed, so it can replace part of the fresh milk in many recipes and doesn't require refrigeration before it's opened. If you use it regularly, make sure you're buying evaporated milk. Check the expiration date and rotate your supply because the color may become darker over time in storage. At the same time, don't buy more than you need if your family doesn't cook very often. Evaporated milk is affected by only 2 major supply chains. But number 6 is much more complicated because a single can of chili combines meat, beans, tomatoes, spices, and packaging into one product. Number 6. Canned chili. The domino effect of a complete meal. A can of chili looks like a single product, but for that can to make it onto Walmart's shelves, at least 4 different supply chains have to be working normally at the same time. If just one link runs into trouble, the entire product can be affected. That's what makes canned chili one of the most vulnerable foods. Unlike canned tuna or canned beans, which depend on one main ingredient, chili is a combination of beef or pork, beans, tomatoes, spices, steel cans, and processing plants. Each component has its own supply chain, creating a domino effect from the raw ingredients all the way to the grocery shelf. The first source of pressure comes from protein. America's beef cattle herd is now at its lowest level since 1951, while feed costs, labor, and processing expenses remain high. If pork is used, manufacturers also have to deal with disease risks and fluctuations in livestock prices. As soon as meat prices rise, the cost of an entire can of chili rises with them. The next source of pressure comes from beans and tomatoes. About 95% of America's processing tomatoes are grown in California, where drought and water shortages are ongoing challenges. Pinto beans are affected by fertilizer prices, harvesting costs, and planted acreage. Some spices also have to be imported, making them vulnerable to tariffs and shipping costs. Finally, there's the manufacturing process. Steel cans, sterilization energy, factory labor, and transportation all increase the cost before the product ever reaches Walmart. When shelf space has to be optimized, Walmart usually keeps the best-selling SKUs and reduces versions such as no beans, turkey chili, low sodium, organic, hot, mild, or family-size cans. That's why shortages usually begin with the less popular varieties rather than the entire chili lineup. If you regularly buy canned chili, choose the variety your family actually eats. Compare the protein content, sodium, and the ratio of meat and beans to sauce. At the same time, don't assume the larger can is always the better value, because the price per ounce isn't always lower than the standard size. Chili is vulnerable because it depends on so many supply chains at the same time. But number 5 is at the opposite extreme, a product so overlooked that many people may not even realize it has quietly disappeared from Walmart's shelves. Number 5. Canned corned beef. The invisible product most likely to disappear. This is one of the most invisible products at Walmart. It usually takes up only a small section of shelf space with very few brands, and it's rarely promoted the way canned tuna or canned soup is. Precisely because so few people notice it, its disappearance often happens quietly. Many families don't realize it's gone until they come back to buy another can and find that the familiar one is no longer there. The biggest vulnerability of canned corned beef isn't the product itself, it's the supply. Fewer brands and limited shelf space mean there's almost no buffer if one supplier runs into trouble. Unlike products with plenty of alternatives, corned beef depends on a relatively small number of manufacturers, and part of the supply still comes from imports. The first source of pressure is beef prices. America's beef cattle herd is now at its lowest level since 1951, while feed costs, labor, and processing expenses remain high. As costs rise, manufacturers usually prioritize their best-selling products and reduce lower-volume items. The next source of pressure comes from the international supply chain. Import tariffs, border inspections, ocean freight costs, and steel can prices all increase costs before the product ever reaches Walmart's shelves. If just one link slows down, restocking slows down as well. That's why Walmart usually doesn't eliminate this product altogether. Instead, it reduces shelf facings, keeps only the best-selling brand, moves some SKUs to online-only sales, or restocks less frequently in smaller stores. As a result, the exact same product may still be available in one city while disappearing from another. If you regularly buy canned corned beef, check the country of origin. Stay informed about product recalls, and compare the meat-to-fat ratio along with the sodium content between brands. Don't assume every imported product is the same. Canned corned beef shows that sometimes a product becomes harder to find not because it's sold out nationwide, but because it no longer sells well enough for Walmart to keep giving it shelf space. But number 4 is completely different. It's found in millions of kitchens, and it's that enormous level of demand that allows even a small change to spread very quickly. Number 4. Canned tuna. The familiar stability is starting to crack. If you had to choose one canned food that's found in almost every kitchen, canned tuna would probably be at the top of the list. The same can size, the same spot on the shelf, and almost the same price for years. That familiarity is exactly why so few people notice what's changing behind the scenes. A can of tuna sold at Walmart may begin with fish caught in the Pacific Ocean, then be processed in Thailand, Ecuador, or the Philippines, packed into cans made somewhere else, and shipped through multiple ports before reaching the United States. If just one link runs into trouble, the entire supply chain is affected. The first source of pressure comes from the ocean. Fishing quotas, rising ocean temperatures, fuel prices, and harvesting regulations all directly affect the supply of raw fish. The second source of pressure comes during processing, where labor costs, transportation, steel can prices, and import tariffs all play a role. At the same time, demand continues to shift among skipjack, albacore, and yellowfin varieties. As prices rise, consumers often switch from albacore to chunklite, from national brands to great value, or even to canned mackerel to save money. That puts pressure on certain segments even before average tuna prices rise significantly. That's why Walmart is much more likely to keep selling tuna while narrowing the selection. Products such as competitively priced albacore, oil-packed varieties, low-sodium options, multi-packs, or smaller brands may become less common or move to online-only availability. When buying tuna, distinguish between chunklite, albacore, and yellowfin. Check the drained weight, compare the price per ounce and the sodium content, instead of looking only at the shelf price. And don't buy large quantities just because one brand happens to be on sale. Canned tuna is familiar because it's found in millions of kitchens. But number 3 goes even further. It's tied to the memories of generations. And that brand recognition sometimes makes shoppers believe it will always have a place on Walmart's shelves. Number 3. Campbell's soup. When nostalgia can't beat profits. Some brands make us believe they'll be around forever. For many American families, a can of Campbell's isn't just lunch. It's a bowl of tomato soup with a grilled cheese sandwich on a cold day, chicken noodle soup when you're sick, and a familiar sight in the kitchen pantry that's been there for generations. Campbell's has been around for more than 155 years, since 1869. But a brand's history doesn't mean every product will remain on the shelf. Memories don't decide which products survive. Sales, costs, and profit margins do. Every can of soup depends on multiple ingredients, including steel for the can, wheat, chicken, tomatoes, and manufacturing energy. About 95% of America's processing tomatoes alone are grown in California. So even a drought or higher energy costs can put pressure on production costs. The pressure also comes from the product lineup itself. Campbell's has to maintain dozens of flavors, multiple can sizes, and different product lines. When profit margins get squeezed, the company usually has 3 choices: raise prices, reduce promotions, or eliminate underperforming SKUs. That last option is why certain flavors gradually disappear, even while the Campbell's brand continues to fill the shelves. At Walmart, versions like low sodium, healthy request, less popular flavors, slower selling concisas, seasonal varieties, or value-priced multi-packs are usually more likely to be reduced before the core products. If you see Campbell's on sale, check the expiration date. Buy only the flavors your family actually eats. and know the difference between condensed soup and ready-to-eat soup. And don't forget to calculate the cost after preparation instead of looking only at the price per can. Campbell's shows that even a major brand can quietly reduce its selection. But number 2 is under even more pressure, even though it seems to be nothing more than a simple can of beans. Number 2. Refried beans. A simple can of beans under pressure from 4 directions. Few people would think that a can of refried beans, Mexican-style mashed pinto beans, could be under this much pressure. There's no expensive meat, no deep-sea fishing, and it's not a premium product. But beneath that simple appearance are at least 4 vulnerabilities in the supply chain. The first vulnerability is pinto beans themselves. This crop depends on drought conditions, irrigation water, planted acreage, and fertilizer prices. Just one poor growing season can significantly increase the cost of the raw ingredient. The second vulnerability lies in the supply chain between the United States and Mexico. Many ingredients or processing steps depend on factories and transportation routes that cross the border. That means transportation costs, import procedures, and customs clearance times can all affect how quickly products are restocked. The third source of pressure comes from the product's recipe itself. 2 cans of refried beans may look almost identical, but one may be made with lard, another with vegetable oil, and another with no added fat at all. Many varieties also include onions, peppers, and spices, meaning each ingredient brings its own supply chain with it. Finally, there's the packaging. Even though it's an inexpensive food, refried beans still have to be packed in tin-plated steel cans and go through the same sterilization process as other canned foods. So packaging costs still have a direct impact on the final price. What's especially noteworthy is that demand is increasing at the very moment supply is under pressure. As America's beef cattle herd falls to its lowest level since 1951, many families are turning to bean burritos, bean tacos, or rice and beans as more affordable sources of protein. That's why Walmart usually continues carrying great value, traditional, and fat-free varieties, while organic, spicy, black refried beans, larger cans, or specialty versions are more likely to be reduced first. When buying refried beans, read the ingredient list. Know the difference between vegetarian varieties and those made with lard. Compare the sodium content, and consider keeping both dry beans for long-term storage and canned beans for meals when convenience matters. Refried beans show that even a low-cost product can be squeezed from 4 different directions. But number 1 is the clearest example of all, where the ingredients, imports, packaging, and even retail supply contracts can all affect the very same can. Number 1. Canned pineapple. The fruit many people don't think about until it's no longer easy to find. Canned pineapple is rarely the first thing people think of when building a food supply. It's not a source of protein, and it's not a main meal. But that's exactly why many people overlook the fact that it's one of the few fruits that can be stored for years while still keeping its flavor and creating almost no waste. Just open the can, and it's ready to eat. You can also blend it into smoothies, mix it with yogurt, oatmeal, cottage cheese, fruit salad, or use it in sweet and sour meat dishes. For many older adults, canned pineapple is even more convenient than fresh pineapple because there's no peeling, no removing the eyes, and no worrying about the fruit spoiling after just a few days in the refrigerator. One thing worth paying attention to is that not every can of pineapple is the same. Some are packed in 100% fruit juice, while others are packed in heavy syrup with significantly more sugar. You'll also find different cuts, including rings, chunks, and crushed pineapple and tidbits, each suited for different uses. That's also the most common mistake people make when buying canned pineapple. Many shoppers look only at the price per can and forget to check the drained weight, the actual amount of fruit left after the liquid is removed. Others stock up when they see a sale, only to discover later that the pineapple is too sweet or doesn't fit their family's eating habits. Over the past few years, the price of canned pineapple has also risen noticeably as international shipping, steel cans, and processing costs have all become more expensive. A can that once sold for around $1 at many stores has now climbed past $2 in many cases, especially for major brands or varieties packed in natural juice. Walmart will most likely continue to carry canned pineapple, but it will prioritize the fastest-selling SKUs, organic varieties, no sugar-added options, large cans, and some smaller brands may gradually become less common as the retailer continues optimizing shelf space. If your family regularly buys canned pineapple, consider choosing varieties packed in natural juice. Compare prices by drained weight instead of simply looking at the price per can, and stock only the kinds your family actually eats. Sometimes, the first thing to disappear isn't canned pineapple itself. It's the familiar option you've always bought. These 11 products aren't 11 separate stories. They're different signs of the same shift happening behind the grocery shelves. A can doesn't just hold food. It also contains steel, energy, protective linings, lids, and manufacturing costs. At the same time, the raw materials can't recover overnight. America's beef cattle herd is at its lowest level since 1951. Salmon need 3 to 7 years to complete their biological life cycle, and a failed harvest has to wait until the next growing season. More importantly, Walmart doesn't have to wait until a product is completely gone before responding. The company can reduce SKUs, shrink shelf space, prioritize its private label, or move certain items to online-only sales. That's why the first change usually isn't an empty shelf. It's fewer choices. Keep an eye on today's prices, compare the price per ounce. Buy extra only for the products your family actually uses, and rotate your older supplies first. Which products are you starting to see disappear from the Walmart where you live?